deeply redesign its MBA program and try to pitch it at a really ambitious level and making it a reference in the world at some point. So our objective with this is to make sure that whoever chooses to do this MBA here with us in Lisbon really will get a very complete education in management in all areas of management, in the core areas. I'm going to leave you now with Paulo Soeiro de Carvalho. So thank you, Paulo, and welcome everyone.
37th edition. It has a long history. What we tried to do was, how can we put this program with this kind of history, credibility, into the future? The new ISEG MBA program has this kind of a configuration: leadership and personal development, applied learning, immersive experiences, and 5 major streams. I'm going to ask Rita Almão to come to the stage.
Our MBAs will have 6 core modules or 6 core courses that will help them navigate to the major forces that we call in leadership.
Invite to the stage 4 people from 4 organizations that are some of our partners and professors, and I believe will have a huge impact in the program in some, or at least in 4 of our strategic streams.
And the difference of this MBA is, I think, will be the core team of the program, the teachers, the partnerships, the people that you will interact. That will be the main difference.
I invite you to be part of this journey beyond the future, your future. So welcome to the ISEG MBA.
Hello everybody, and welcome to this ISEG MBA webinar. It's our 5th webinar. We call ISEG MBA Meeting Our Global Partners because it's basically that. So we want you to know not only the structure of the MBA, but also some of our key partners that are somehow redesigning the entire program. So my name is Paulo Carvalho. I'm the Executive Director of the ISEG MBA. And I'm going to present basically Tiago Nunes in a couple of minutes from WIT Company. It's one of our global partners. But before I introduce you, Tiago, I'm going to, in a very brief way, very synthetic way, to explain a little bit about the MBA, so ISEG MBA. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen, and I will just guide you through a very short presentation of the MBA so that you all can see basically what is all about and why we believe this is one of the best MBAs that you can find, not only in Portugal, but internationally. So let me just explain to you a little bit about the structure very briefly. So, as I was mentioning, this is a webinar series that we are organizing. This is the 5th webinar. We started with Rita Almão in one very important part of our MBA we call Leadership and Personal Development. The second webinar was with Olivier Vaufray, which is from the World Economic Forum. The World Economic Forum is one of our global partners. The third webinar was with Miguel Fontes, the Executive Director of Startup Lisboa. Again, a global partner, so entrepreneurship and innovation, it's one of our main streams and one of the things that we believe it be the core of any leader, top manager in the future. Last week we had with us Arlindo Oliveira, a full professor of Technical, a former president of Technical, to be honest. And Technical is one of our global partners, and is doing everything that deals with technology disruption and digital transformation in the program. Today, we will have Tiago Nunes, one of the co-founders with Rui Quinra of a design company called WIT Company. We'll talk with him and he will explain a little bit how we are going to have this kind of area of design thinking, strategic design to the program. And next week we will have László Nassan. It's a futurist and one of the directors of the Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies, because futures is one of the main topics and one of the main areas that we also bring to the program. So very briefly, if we can just present the ISEG MBA in a nutshell, you can see more or less the structure of the main areas of the program. As any MBA, we have our core courses. We are created by AMBA and international organizations, and so we somehow have the usual suspects in any MBA. So we call it core courses or fundamentals, and basically is where you can find the functional areas of management, from finance, marketing, strategy, operations, or human resources, but also a couple of others that we strongly believe are the fundamental if you want to have a management role, if you want to have like a strong and global perspective of a company, and this is where ISEG, it's a economics and management faculty, one of the most important in Portugal, integrated in the biggest university in Portugal, Universidade de Lisboa, University of Lisbon, a university with 18 faculties and more than 50,000 students. And so this is where our main assets are. We have the best professors, researchers in these fields of finance, economics, and management in our program. The second thing that are clearly one of the most important key distinctive features of this ISEG MBA is the leadership and personal development area. We have two layers, a leadership journey, where you have different kind of modes, from mindfulness to communication, persuasion, negotiation, managing teams, and also get all of these around the entire company. So how you can just bring these kind of skills, these kind of concepts and languages, and work around the entire company. And also what we call a personal development plan. We have a partnership with the Cats de Vernies Institute, one of the most important institutions where you will have a very detailed individual assessment, so that you can have like your own vision and picture of yourself, not only professionally but also in personal aspects. And this is where you are going to start the program. You are going to start with an individual assessment, and then throughout the entire program you will be invited with specific coaching sessions, and of course with the evolution of the program to redesign or to design a vision for yourself, for your career, for your life. So it will be a really important time for you to think about yourself and what exactly are your ambitions for the future. And of course, we have what we call immersive experiences as one of the key things that will happen in the program. We have a partnership with the University of San Francisco and a 1 week in Silicon Valley. But then we invited another global partner of the program, Startup Lisboa, to offer all of you an immersive experience in Lisbon. It's because Lisbon is nowadays one of the most dynamic, dense, organic, and fast-growing and globally connected ecosystems in entrepreneurship and innovation. And it's really important for you to know exactly who to talk with. How can you know more? What kind of startups or founders or investors or eventually co-working spaces or acceleration programs you should know? And Startup Lisboa will be the curator and will guide you through this entire ecosystem. And of course, we will start also with a very interesting experience. You will have a weekend at the Air Force Academy, and this will be important also for you and also as a group, as a cohort of the program, to get this kind of a group spirit at the best in the beginning of the program. Finally, we somehow bring to the program different kind of areas and fields that we believe will be the future. Things that eventually 10 years ago were like something like add-ons or peripheral things that we strongly believe are becoming core to any leader in a public or private organization. And these are what we call strategic streams. We have 5 strategic streams, and in each one of these strategic streams we have global partners. We have what we call global futures. So what are the main global forces, megatrends? How can you deal with uncertainties? How can you build scenarios? And how can you use those scenarios to test bed or use those as a test for your business model, your strategy to design new projects or new products or eventually a new innovation strategies. And we have two partners here, World Economic Forum and the Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies. The second stream is everything that deals with entrepreneurship and innovation. And as I was mentioning, you have University of San Francisco making and guide you through the immersive week that we'll have in Silicon Valley in the end of the program. And of course, Startup Lisboa that I was mentioning that will give you not only that immersive experience in Lisbon, but also an immersive learning experience on the concept, the language, and the tools of entrepreneurship. Today we will talk about design, and we will talk with company and the technology disruption and digital transformation that we talked with Arlindo last week. It's one of the most important areas and streams of our program, and it's one of our global partners. And in the fifth stream is everything that deals with sustainability, climate change, and the governance, and also some ethics issues, that we have also some partners that will also present briefly in the future. So no further ado, so we are going to talk about this stream, and we are going to talk about design thinking. We are going to talk about design thinking, strategic design, UX, and all of that, and why is this so important even for a top manager or a CEO or a CXO, why this is so important, and it's not just something that you can just buy outside your company. I'm going to invite in a couple of minutes Tiago to talk about himself and Rui Quinra, but also with company and this area and why design and this cluster of design thinking, it's so important, and why it makes sense to have this kind of area in an MBA. So I'm going to stop to share my screen, and I'm going to invite Tiago. So Tiago, thank you so much to accept this invitation. Also, of course, to have with company as a global partner of the program. Thank you so much for you to be here and explain a little bit, not only who you are and Rui and with company. We know each other for a long time now. We work together in several projects, so it's really a pleasure to have you here. And so I'm going to give you not the floor, but this digital space so that you can explain a little bit more about yourself and what kind of things the students of the ISEG MBA will get from your experience and your participation. Okay, thank you, Tiago.
Well, so first of all, thank you, Paulo, and thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here, and hi to everyone that is watching. So I'll just also share like quickly the screen, so I prepare a couple of slides to just also give a little bit some substance. I can skip this one, but yeah, nevertheless. So again, thank you, and it's, you know, we are super happy to be partners of ISEG MBA. It's been already like a good collaboration on some other programs, and as you mentioned, like we've known each other for some long time. So I'm Tiago Nunes. I'm a product designer by training. I've also done like a post-graduation at ISEG in strategic design and innovation, and then did advanced studies in design thinking at the D School in Berlin, which is the sister school of the Stanford D School, so the very prestigious Stanford D School. And Rui Quinra, I will take this moment also to introduce him. Unfortunately, he cannot be here, but Rui is also a designer coming more from brand and communication design and brand strategy. He's also like an entrepreneur. he has other business, one of them in a very peculiar business, which is fish and fresh fish, but later on he could, and in the program, introduce himself even better. And we are both co-founders and partners of WIT Company. And WIT Company is a transformative by design company. So pretty much what we do, we are committed in kind of improving individuals, organizationals, and societal needs by requesting what can be the future needs and addressing that future through the line of strategic design and through having like the what is the approach that design have in terms of looking more into human aspects and human behavior to drive in influence future strategies. We've been doing a lot of and diverse projects, so mostly doing innovation projects ranging from sectors as healthcare, insurance and finances, until governmental projects where we are working in more like system thinking and complex projects, and kind of carrying a little bit this vision of the capabilities of strategic design to address those very complex challenges and to end up, of course, into specific solutions that we then help the clients to implement. And we don't do just by ourselves. As you can see in this picture, we have quite a large and growing team of very diverse individuals. So coming from people from social science as anthropologists, sociologists, from strategists, designers, and other disciplines. So pretty much what we do is that we assemble specific teams that go together from the beginning until the end, and kind of involving the client and the organizations along the way. And this is the kind of subjects that we aim to address in our program at the ISEG MBA. So kind of showing what has been the value that design as a discipline has contributed to organizations worldwide. So there are a lot of studies that more and more show what has been the ever-growing value and competitive advantage that design can bring to the organizations, and we will address that. So talking what the kind of advantage organizations can create by building and incorporating these capabilities, but also like how to nurture these within the organizations. So we will explore the different levels of how organizations have been adopting and bringing design into their organizations. And this is some of those models which we will dive a little bit deeper, of course, during this 20-hour program. And we will use this as a base to also tackle what has been the contribution of design, but also looking to how to kind of build a more design-driven organization, and especially looking to the approach of design thinking as an approach and methodology to drive innovation among the companies, and to, in a way, to help future leaders to be more capable to drive and manage those organization and future projects. The application of these capabilities are quite broad. So this can come from even designing the company culture as well. And more we see how companies tend to value this kind of thought and this kind of capabilities that design brings to create the organizational culture as well, but also to bring these capabilities in the terms of how they develop their services, their products, so pretty much how they are creating value to their customers and to other stakeholders. So I think we will have, and as been pretty much that our way of doing things is not just kind of having this this more lectural based approach, but we will have also like a balance between the more learning to sharing, but also like the more practical aspect. So our program is also designed to bring and to kind of guide the participants to also experience some of the tools and some of the dynamics and some of the principles that we believe that are critical and very important to start to be developed and mastered, so that then of course they would feel capable of bringing those capabilities into their projects, into their organizations, and to kind of initiate also this transformational culture through design. Paulo.
Yes, one of I've asked Tiago to bring the slide that you are showing, which is a very interesting.
Is one,
slide.
right?
Yes, that one, because one of the questions that people can ask is, why should a MBA program have as one of the key areas or key modules, or at least design or design thinking? And maybe you can explain. Of course, in a lab, we are going to have like a 20 hours lab or module, but also but other like keynotes and talks about design thinking, strategic agility, operational agility. But why is design so powerful? And maybe you can just bring some examples of companies that put design not just as a add-on or something they can like buy or go to the market or build like a small task or a group or like you have in this slide. Why is design so important? And maybe you can just share some examples of companies or projects that you eventually can share with us.
For sure.
That really make a difference.
For sure. So I will start by the big names, which, you know, it's a good example. But as you pointed really well, like trying to go a little bit beyond sometimes like the common perception that we have about design, which is more about the look and feel, right? Yeah. But if we think about Apple as a global brand, right? Of course, it's easy that we understand and describe how beauty their products are, but you know, they have been doing a tremendous effort, and the culture and the entire leadership of the organization, you know, when Steve Jobs was there, but even after Steve Jobs, now with Tim Cook, but which has been like the strong influence of the design leadership in terms of every decisions that the company makes, not just about how the product looks, but what the entire experience should be. And that's a reflection also of the company culture that they have built. So, you know, that was very present under the form of Jonathan Ive, which was the former vice president of design. And he started as an industrial designer at Apple and then moved to kind of assume the global leadership of the company in terms of the design, influencing and managing everything from the hardware to the software, and of course being very involved in being part of all the strategic decisions in terms of the market strategy, marketing strategies, like everything that is related with the success of the projects and product developments that the brand and Apple does. And you know, it's not by chance that we have the perception of Apple as an innovative brand, as a, you know, as a kind of, they managed to be coined as a style, right? So you have Apple style. So you now tend to compare other products and other brands according to the Apple style and Apple brand. And that's something that you are, you know, companies can achieve only that if they take design really serious, right? And if they are able to actually create also a culture within the organization that values and nurtures these capabilities. The same goes to Google, and it's very clear how Google has been also taking design very seriously and how consistent they have been in terms of creating a universal design language that it's recognizable in everything that they do, right? Not just, again, on the projects and the products that they bring to the market, but all the interfaces, all the experience and culture-wise is a reflection of that level of importance. A little bit in more like, let's say, our reality and what's a little bit more closer to us, and maybe describing some of the projects that we have been engaging. So, you know, could talk about the work that we've been doing, for instance, with Fidelidad Insurance. So we've been working with their transformation department, thinking on new solutions, not necessarily just focusing on insurance, but actually like looking to other opportunities where they can be relevant as well. We recently done a project around the topic of aging with them. And like, this is an example of a big company, right? Which is also trying to develop those capabilities like more internally. So we've like, but that's very related with the nurture and how we do the projects, that we tend to transfer as well a lot of our capabilities and how we do the projects, and in a way bringing the client and involving the client along the way. Another curious example is the work that we've been doing with the government, and that we've been done also with with other public entities, like the Lisbon municipality, like even in the past with someone that you know, as the case of the Made of Lisboa project that we did together. And an
amazing project.
An amazing project is a good example as well, where we involved, right? Like, so the project, and talking about that project, was about like designing the brand for the entrepreneurial ecosystem, something that was growing and expanding quite a lot at the time, and that, you know, you felt and the city felt that it needed something a little bit more substantial to kind of characterize that ecosystem. And we didn't do that just by ourselves, right? So we involved the entire ecosystem in the creation process. So like, you know, we had to understand from their perspective so that we could design something that could be representative of that ecosystem as a brand, as an identity, but also then identifying needs that we translated then to in that case to the platform. Another example is the work that we have been doing with other entities like IRN, so the Institute of Registry and Notary, where we have been not just doing a really big project in the past, like a pilot project trying to map the territory and to try to understand who owns what and who is the owner of which piece of land in talking about rural property, and who doesn't own anything, right? And then that property needs to be managed as well. You know, and that was a really big complex project where we spent like 1 month working and understanding like the cultural dynamics of a rural area. So we moved ourselves to those locations, and from that we learned a lot, and that influenced how we are able then to translate to strategies and to then solutions and to roadmaps. And more recently we have been working with them, like rethinking the front office experience of the registry offices. So, you know, rethinking a public service experience.
It's a great range of projects and applications, right?
Totally.
Tiago, let me ask you one question from Ana Domingos. It's a question from Ana. She's talking from Brazil, and it's a very interesting one, which is she's asking how to raise awareness of top management and leadership of the importance of design in all areas of the company. Where to start? It's a good question.
It's a really good question, and more we feel that sometimes like these these projects needs that kind of support and sponsorship from the top management. My perception, and talking about the Portuguese context where we know a little bit better, is that more and more these leaderships are becoming more sensitive about the topic of design, and design thinking has become something that these leaders are a little bit more aware, either because they are also taking part on this kind of programs, so having contact with the approach and experiencing it, so kind of understanding how powerful it can be to their organizations. But sometimes we've been feeling that, you know, this happens also from people that are a little bit on lower levels, but that they have that drive, right? So they have that energy and they understand the relevance, and then they start by bringing these kind of capabilities. Either, you know, this can be done actually in different ways. So either you know, can be like the initial innovation departments, let's say, that organizations start to form. And more we see that organizations are starting to be a little bit more aware and recognizing the importance of bringing designers also to those departments, because they already bring that mindset, right? So that's a way of doing it. And or of course, like then outsourcing and working with companies that can support them in their projects. And then sometimes the projects are the best showcase of those capabilities. You know, having something concrete to work, and then having a different approach, and then being able to show the results of that different approach, and showing and starting create that visibility to the top management. It's a way to start kind of providing those signals into, you know, look, there's something different that can be done, and look to the results that this of this different approach. Of course, it's a much faster and empowered process if this is, of course, coming from the top. I mean, what we've been feeling is that more and more we feel that leaders are more open also to these topics, and because, you know, like design as gaining a little bit more of space even into the business lingo, like this MBA is a very good example of that, right? So the fact that there's the model talking about these topics and talking about the relevance of design, it's intentional, right? So it's we believe that this is the kind of capabilities and mindset that future leaders need to have, because, you know, and it's not just us saying, you know, right? I had this previous slide showing that there are tremendous studies already pointing to, you know, the value of design-driven companies, right? And how that translates ultimately into revenue. So there's more and more studies pointing to that, and pointing to the success of bringing design capabilities into the organization. But as any, I would say, transformation or organizational change management process, it's something that it can take time, and it depends, of course, also in how much the company is able to invest into bringing these capabilities. So
Tiago, let me ask you something. And first of all, we in this ISEG MBA program, we have a strategic board with the 25 companies and top managers of those companies, like Caixa de Depósitos, Revolut, Accenture, Deloitte, Axian, Staples, L'Oreal, many companies with these top managers sitting on the board of this strategic board of this MBA. And all of them will be mentors of our students, depending on the profile of each one of these students. And all of these companies will open the doors to internships or eventually specific projects. One of the news that was visible a couple of weeks ago, 2 months maybe, was that from all of the MBA students, alumni that finished an MBA in the United States, one of the top companies for which they wanted to go work in the future was IDEO. And it is a design company.
Yeah.
Maybe, and you are growing so fast, maybe some of the students and the future students of the MBA, of ISEG MBA, why not going to make an internship or a professional project at with company, because you are growing so fast. So
totally totally. And I mean, of course, we'll be more than open. I mean, and I think we have the structure even for that, because that's a thing. Like many times we bring external people to the projects, so we like to have these different visions on the projects. So for sure, there's that.
that's a possibility for sure, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
Let me just ask you one other question, which is, everybody talks about design thinking and design, so it's very on the agenda, and
Yeah.
But it's not just about the tools. It's not about just, okay, let's do brainstorming, or let's make it's the double diamond, or it's like the customer journey. So there are a couple of buzzwords and important tools, but it's much more than that. And what the students will have the opportunity to learn is it's much more than the tool or the concept or the framework. How do you at least try to get a sense of the results? Because in the end, you need to fulfill a client, a need of a client, or the results. How do you somehow benchmark or measure the results of your projects? Can you share some of the insights with us?
Sure. So just first, like you touch a very good topic, which is sometimes, you know, I have a very strong and personal opinion about, you know, how sometimes organizations look to design thinking, and a very critical opinion, because that's the thing. Like, I think organizations need to move beyond sometimes what it's more like the process aspect of design thinking, and really look it more as like, this is a mindset change. So it's a cultural change. It's a change on how we want to do things from this point, right? And how we want to be closer to our customers, how we want to involve our customers sometimes more into the decision making process as well. So it's also about, you know, sometimes being a little bit more humble as well in the decisions that we make. But yeah, like that's the first point that I wanted to stress out, that something that we like to talk and try to in a way to bring on these models is to really, like, the tools are important, because that's the thing, they are tools and they help us to kind of activate a little bit this mindset and the process. The process it's important because it kind of gives us a framework and some kind of structure on how to manage these way of doing things. So it kind of brings that level of structure. But at the end of the day, it's much more about our predisposal to innovate and to be more open about things and to kind of risk sometimes, you know, rather than just adopting a process. And that has been what I feel that sometimes hasn't been very, you know, sometimes successful to some companies, that when adopting design thinking, because they just look to the process side, you know, and companies are very good especially big companies, very good adopting new process, but then they neglect other aspects that are important to sustain this kind of approach. But going to your topic in terms of, you know, how to measure in a way, your question in terms of how to measure and benchmark the success of projects. I mean, it can depend on projects, of course, and the level of the innovation, let's say, that we are working on, because some things you can only measure like after a couple of years, so it's not so immediate. Nevertheless, there are more and more metrics that you can use to understand, you know, the level of success of what it's a project coming a little bit from this perspective. So that can be, of course, the level of intuitiveness of the solutions, and that you can measure by the level of complaints, let's say, that you have. So if you're a software house, right, so you develop a software, then nowadays a lot of companies that are doing software, you know, a lot of the work that they have there, it's related with support, right, and customer support. So that's something that you can measure, right? So if you're even making a minor change on the experience of already existing software solution, you know, not even bringing here like how you can use this approach to really redesign or rethink a new solution, but even just tapping into sometimes some problems of an existing solution, then you can also measure, you know, that, like, am I decreasing the number of contacts, right? And like this, I'm going to something very specific. Of course, then you can measure from the level of sales, of the success of that product or service within a market. If you are designing a service, something that it's a little bit more intangible, that it's more within the experience, you can then put in place some evaluation of that experience. And, you know, normally companies also, they evaluate their normal and standard experience in service. So then you can compare, you know, how does something new compares to the other. And then, you know, there are companies that, for instance, also they have a goal that, you know, they want to be closer to the customers, right, on the product development or service development process. So measuring also the number of client contacts that you have during that process, sometimes it's a KPI for some companies as well. The number of prototypes and iterations that you develop until you release a product into the market. You know, so this will help you to understand how much speed and validation you are bringing to the design of your solutions, which of course minimizes the risk of bringing a solution to the market because you previously tested and you iterated, and maybe you are also redesigning your entire market launch approach, right? So coming from an MVP to maybe to a pilot program, and then to understand how to scale that more globally, right? So I would say there's different ways, and then of course each organization then has to look to their existing KPIs as well, and to see, you know what are the KPIs.
Yeah, running out of time, but there are a couple of major changes. This is not a question for you to answer because we don't have time, and I have a question from someone that is listening to us, which is Rosemary Auger. I don't know how to spell it, to say it in English, but it's about the impact of AI and how AI is having a huge impact on design thinking, user experience, design service, not only from the perspective of the way that the consumer, the user, is changing his behavior because of artificial intelligence and data science, and the way that the behaviors are changing because of data science and of the algorithms, but also how the data, or the AI and the big data are changing the way that you can find insights and the data for the project. So there's a huge change in this area. But I would like to make the question that Rosemary Auger is sharing with us, which is, how is WIT company coping with the current crisis, and how do you think it will impact the investment in change management and into the transformation into a design organization?
So it's a really good question. So actually both topics. So just pointing a little bit on the AI topic, I think it's actually a quite interesting loop system, right? Because we are designing something that will influence ourselves and our decisions, and by doing that, we are feeding the algorithm, right? So it's almost like a never-ending system, and I mean, there's a lot of dangers with that as well, and we sometimes bring some scary examples of that, but there's definitely a lot of interesting opportunities, because that's a thing. Like a lot of those algorithms are also influenced and designed according to behaviors that we need to understand in a deeper level, which ultimately help us to also to influence our deep decisions and perceptions. Regarding that, the crisis and that question, I think this, I think we are living unique times, and this is becoming a cliche, what I've just said. And in our case, we had to adapt a lot, and it has been extremely, not just challenging, but a great opportunity as well for us to rethink and re-question how we have been doing things. Our approach has been and still continues to be very dependent on interaction with people, and a lot of the approach that we have requires a lot of physical interaction, either with workshops with clients, either by kind of experiencing and living how people live the topics that we are exploring. And of course, now we have this huge constraint, right, where we are limited in terms of these interactions and these capabilities. So we had to redesign a lot of our tools, a lot of our approach, while trying to preserve our beliefs, principles, and what we believe that it's kind of the essence of with company and the way that we do things, and the reason why clients are working with us. And we have been finding a way. I think that's the beauty of human nature, is that we always find a way to adapt ourselves. And so we are, using more and more and becoming also more familiar with digital tools that in a way allow us to kind of mimic some of the things that we have in a more physical space, like whiteboards, physical whiteboards and things like that. And we have been running design workshops and design sprints in the digital space quite successfully.
And it's amazing the development in this kind of platforms and softwares where you can just almost replicate what you can do on whiteboards in a physical space. It's just
Totally. And I think that, in the past, even before with company, I explored, because I was working also for a remote company around web development. And I was already during that time trying to kind of, even trying to do this, what we are being able to do today with company in this more remote operation. I was trying to do that like almost 8 years ago. And I think that at least there's a common advantage at the moment, is that we are all of us are working under the same framework, because so also the resistance from the clients or the organizations is way less, because they have to be in this position as well. They have to work, and they are working remotely. So I think, I think this pandemic has brought a lot of opportunities, but the biggest opportunity being like the reduction of these digital transformation that has been so proclaimed for so long. Like companies and organizations that maybe they had the plan of being in this context like in 5 or 10 years, they were forced to do it now. So that brought a lot of speed into decisions, into adaptation, and to understanding, that some preconceptions that we might had before, maybe some still continues, but I think the majority of them have been washed away, because we are starting more and more to see the pros and the benefits, and we are starting to adapt, and the tools are becoming more powerful for us to operate within this context. So it's definitely possible.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Just we need to close, but the language, the concepts, the tools, and the frameworks of the design thinking, service design, UX, whatever, are so close to the same concept, the same language of agile and agility, totally. of the lean startup, of the business model canvas, and of the foresight and scenarios. And all of these in a major accelerator that it's what we are living in, that and also the technology disruption, the digital transformation that I strongly believe that our streams will equip this new generation of leaders and change makers to take the best out of this, also to face the challenge and uncertainties, but also to take the best of the opportunities that come in the future.
Totally.
Tiago, thank you so much. It was a real pleasure, as always, to talk with you. And I hope to see you soon physically. And to all
Looking
of you,
forward.
so all of the people that are listening to our webinar. So we are going to have the next one. It will be the last one of this series. It will be with Lars Jonassen from the Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies, and we will talk about the future. So uncertainties, how can you face uncertainties, identify megatrends, and deal with this kind of risks, and design new kind of strategies, and think about innovation in the face of these really complex and turbulent times. So thank you so much, and see you next week. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.